This event occurred 8 years ago when I was working as a cab driver. I can still clearly recall that night's moonlight, which was particularly chilly and blue at 2 in the morning. Since then, I have not been able to operate a vehicle. I was feeling tired and wanted to head home when the backseat car door suddenly opened, revealing a man in a red fedora and red suit. I was taken aback by this man's sudden appearance, so I clutched my chest. He was wearing red sunglasses, and when I asked him where he was going, he responded strangely, saying,
"A place you will hate so much."
His voice sounded like it was leaking air. I thought he was strange, but I tried to speak calmly. "Sir, please tell me your destination, sir. I need to go home soon and see my wife, even for just 1 more minute. Oh, that's romantic. I think it was a good decision to choose you." He was giggling obnoxiously, and I thought he was crazy. I was thinking about throwing him out, but then he said, "There's a cemetery about 10 miles from here. Let's just go there." I was a little annoyed, but all I could think about was quickly dropping him off and going home. So I started the car. I was nervous and wanted to lighten the mood. So I spoke to him, "What do you do?" "I'm a delivery man." His voice still sounded like there was ear-raw, escaping. "Oh yeah, what are you delivering?" "I'm delivering something very interesting. I'm delivering it right now." "Yeah, you're delivering now, but you're not holding anything." Then he started laughing out loud, and at that moment, dust flew out of his mouth. I was shocked. All of his teeth visible from his open mouth were rotten. His gums were missing. His tongue was rotten, disgusting, dry like a mummy for a moment. I was confused as to whether I had seen an illusion. Then I saw a cemetery ahead, and he said something I couldn't understand. "Oh, it's about time. Goodbye." He hummed an unknown song and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his rotten, dry, bony arms. Then suddenly he came closer to me, put his hand in my mouth. I was startled and tried to stop him. The car lurched forward and backward, and before I knew it, his hand was down my throat. Then I felt his hand grabbing my heart. I was in tremendous pain. I screamed, turning the steering wheel, and slammed the brakes at that time. The man whispered something in my ear. At the same time, I heard the sound of the car wheels screeching, and everything went blank. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed, and my wife was next to me crying. She said, when she saw me waking up, "Are you okay?" The doctor said, "You almost died from a heart attack, but you survived." I was floored. I suddenly remembered the man and asked her, "What happened to the man in my back seat?" Then she looked at me with a questioning look and said, "What man you were riding alone? Could it be that your brain is also injured, doctor?" She began sobbing, the man in red. No matter how much I shouted, she just cried. I was so stunned, and the rescue workers who came to the scene also said that there was no one in my car but me. I thought the conversation with the backseat passenger might be on the dash cam, so I asked my wife to get the dash cam, and when we played the video, we couldn't believe it. The man's voice couldn't be heard, only the sound of air leaking. My wife was confused and asked what the sound of hair leaking was. Even when I showed it to the other people, none of them could understand what the sound was, only I could recognize his voice. I was terrified and wondered who the man was. I could still clearly recall his red fedora shining in the moonlight and his eerie voice, but I couldn't quite recall what he had last whispered in my ear. I obviously fainted when I heard that, but I couldn't quite remember. Then, in the early morning, I started getting goosebumps all over my body. My body began to shake so much that the bed shook too. This was because I remembered the words he had whispered.
"I deliver people to the afterlife."
This is a tale from my father's past. Back when he resided in India at the age of around 14, he lived in a relatively rural area, not far from patches of vegetation and forests. The houses of my dad and his neighbors were interconnected through a small walkway and a back door, resembling an entry into someone's backyard. In those days, my dad and his neighbors employed several servants to handle chores and other household tasks. Among them was a typically cheerful girl who would come to my dad's house to fetch fresh milk from his cow. However, one day something unusual happened. The girl entered the house in an odd manner, appearing completely exhausted, dragging herself through the door with a blank expression on her face. She walked around practically limp, catching the attention of my grandmother, who questioned her strange behavior. Despite the oddity, she grabbed the milk and returned to my dad's neighbor's house in the same exhausted manner. Shortly afterward, my dad heard a scream and people shouting for others to come quickly. In a rush, my dad and his parents joined the commotion at the neighbor's house. They found the girl on the floor being restrained by 3 grown men who were also servants of the house. Her arms and legs were thrashing about, and she was shaking violently, seemingly uncontrollable even with the strong grip of the men holding her down. My grandmother, alarmed by the situation, called for a witch doctor. At this point, my dad, growing frustrated, insisted on getting a real doctor as he believed the girl might be experiencing a heart attack and required medical attention. However, his pleas were disregarded. After 15 minutes, the witch doctor arrived. Meanwhile, the girl continued to be restrained and shake violently. The witch doctor, assessing the situation, took off his slipper, grabbed the girl's hair, and smacked her on both sides of the cheek. This angered my dad even more, as he thought they were making the situation worse. As the witch doctor continued his actions, asking the girl which tree she came from, a crowd of 30 people from the neighborhood gathered around, witnessing the unusual scene. The girl, under the grip of the witch doctor, eventually stopped shaking. The witch doctor then asked her again which tree she came from, threatening to trap her in a bottle if she didn't answer. To everyone's surprise, the girl released herself from the grip of the witch doctor, got up, and started walking towards a nearby forest that separated the neighborhood. When she stopped in front of a tree, she collapsed and then woke up confused, seemingly back to her normal self. She questioned why everyone was surrounding her. The witch doctor explained the events, and the girl revealed that her mother had visited her the night before. Her mother had died a long time ago, shortly after her birth, due to a train accident. In those parts of India, it was believed that spirits inhabited banyan trees, and not all of them were friendly. My dad still reflects on this incident, suggesting that if the people involved were staging an elaborate prank, they did an excellent job of fooling the villagers. However, if it was not a prank, then he remains uncertain whether it was truly the spirit of her deceased mother that visited her that night.